Hi everyone, this is Emily Vieser, and today I'm going to show you the ePortfolio I created using Weebly. So when you go to emilyvieser.weebly.com, this is the first page that pops up. This is my home page, so I just included Miss Vieser's classroom and a welcome. I also have a button that takes you directly to my resume because I thought that would be handy for future employers to just find my resume really easily. So if you scroll down a little bit, I included a picture of myself to make it a little bit more welcoming and personable. And I also wrote a little welcome. So welcome to my website. I showed the readers what they can find on my website, and I also included a quote, which is teachers who love teaching teach students to love learning. And I included this because I think a big part of teaching is to love what you're doing. And when you love what you're doing, students are going to recognize that and they're going to love your classroom. They're going to love your classroom. They're going to love learning. So I'm going to take you to my About page. So on my About, I just explain where I did my school, and that includes my bachelor's degree, my multiple subject credential, and my master's. And then I explain why I went into teaching just briefly so that whoever's reading this kind of has an idea of why I went into it. And then I showed that button to you earlier, which is the link to my resume, which is also on the About page. So what's nice about Weebly is that you can scroll down and preview the document that is here, or you have the option to download it. So that's really nice because if you don't want to download a bunch of links to your computer, you can easily see it right there. Or if you do want to download it, you have that option. So next I'm going to take you to my contact page. So that just has my email. Next I have my letters of recommendation, so you can find that there. And last I have my academic information, so that just says again where I did all of my schooling. Next I'm going to go to my teaching philosophy. So right here I just wrote 2 paragraphs, which is basically about my teaching philosophy, which is I think that as a teacher you need to get to know each and every one of your students. Not only does this make them feel important and special, but it also helps you plan your curriculum and your classroom management because classes can be very different year to year, and by getting to know each and every one of your students, you're able to plan better. So I think that this is important not only so that I can plan appropriately, but also so that my students know that I genuinely do care about them and I want them to succeed. For those students who may struggle or students who may lash out occasionally, this is going to help them understand that they are important and their teacher genuinely does care about them and their success. So that's my teaching philosophy, and I've come to that philosophy based on teachers I've had in the past who really were like cheerleaders throughout my schooling, and to me that means a lot, especially now that I'm going into the field of education because I realize how life-changing that approach to teaching can be. So there's that teaching philosophy. Next, I'm going to go to my portfolio and I'm going to go into lesson plans first. So one of the first lesson plans I included was a reading lesson I wrote for 462. So I just included this lesson because I really enjoy teaching this lesson, and also because I have the evaluation form on here. So I put both of those attached so that whoever is looking at my portfolio can see how well I did actually teaching it and the written version of it. I also included one of the first inquiry lessons I ever wrote from 460 or 474, excuse me. So I included that it was part of a thematic unit, and I also included the CSTP for each lesson and everything that's included in the portfolio portion. So there's that inquiry lesson. I also included a direct instruction lesson that also went with the same ocean theme. So that also has the CSTP, and the lesson is right here. Also, I included all of the inquiry lessons from this class. So I included the first lesson we did as a group. So I included that and all of the supplemental materials, and the standard is right here. And I just reflected on how well we did with that. And then I included the second one that we did. And I kind of reflected on how we went from the first one to the second one and how it was kind of becoming a little bit easier, and how this one included next generation science standards. And that also has a CSTP. And then last, I included the inquiry lesson we wrote individually, and I reflected on how well I did it and how it was a little bit difficult at first, but I made it a little bit cross-curricular by using a TED Talk and how it kind of made it a little bit easier and how I had a lot of fun with it. So here are all of those lessons, and like I said, I reflected on all of them and how I felt that they went or what I felt I did successfully when writing those lessons. So next I have projects, and the first project is a science ebook I created in my undergraduate. So this was just an ebook I did in my junior year of undergrad, and I included that I really enjoyed making this and I feel very proud of it, but now that I'm reflecting back, I think that I could do an even better job, which I think education is constantly about reflecting and seeing how you can do better in the future. And then I also included a video I made about gifted students because I think that understanding gifted students is really important. And this shows not only understanding of it, but also how to create lessons that are meaningful for the students. And then lastly, I included an ebook I created as well. This was something I had to do for my science class as well, but it's also something you can use as an assessment for students. So I kind of explained that in there. And then lastly, for my portfolio, I included some documents of achievement. For example, the CSET, because that's a state requirement. Also the CBEST, that's another state requirement, and my certificate of clearance. So these are all documents that future employers will probably need. So not only is it going to be available on here, but I can also provide this information for them. But at least this is showing that I do have these documents presently. And then lastly, I have my resources. So I divided this up by resources for teachers, resources for students, and resources for parents. And I had a little bit of trouble finding resources for parents, but I found this website which has pretty much everything I would want a parent to have. So it includes a lot of information, ways they can be helpful, and just a lot of things for teachers too. And so a lot of these are really great resources that I was finding as I was creating my portfolio. So some key learnings I've learned throughout the credential program is one big thing is to step outside the box. Before beginning my credential program, I had done a lot of teacher-based lessons, whereas now I've learned a lot about inquiry and cooperative learning. And although that can be scary to implement in the classroom before, I've seen how much more meaningful those lessons become because it's more teacher or student centered, and every student gets to work in groups, and it is very team building too, which I think is really important. And I've also learned a lot of strategies to keep students engaged and keep learning fun and exciting. So a lot of those strategies I find myself reflecting on a lot now that I've learned them. I've also learned to incorporate more technology. Before, I was really scared to include technology because some of it I didn't know how to use in the classroom, or I was just a little bit nervous to have a bunch of students using it. But now I see how important and effective that can be. And I've also learned quite a bit about classroom management, not only in the credential program, but since I've started substitute teaching in the credential program, I've seen what I kind of like and what I dislike. And one thing I liked a lot from one of the articles we read this past week was the Calm Down Corner, I believe it was called, where she had a timer and a fluffy cat, things like that. And that's something I would like to incorporate in my classroom because it helps students acknowledge their behavior and go sit in the corner, calm down, and then come back. And lastly, my philosophy on teaching has changed slightly. However, I've always wanted to make my classroom really welcoming and safe, and I've wanted to get to know all of my students, but I didn't necessarily understand how important that was. Before, I used to think classrooms were more of a one-size-fits-all, but now I realize how diverse a classroom can be between students with mild to moderate disabilities or students who are English learners. You know, there's so many different students you'll have in your classroom, so really getting to know each and every one of them really helps you as a teacher to understanding them for developing your classroom management and for your curriculum. So I feel like understanding and taking all the classes in the credential program really has helped me develop as a teacher. So thank you for looking at my website. If you have any questions, please let me know.